Greetings, Toffees. Welcome back to the Blue Frontier as Everton add another impressive road win to their record this season, earning their first league win against Aston Villa since 2016, 1-0 through Thierno Berry, ending Villa's 11-match home winning streak. Thrilling stuff from the Toffees today. We'll get into it. Before we do, just a reminder, if you enjoy the show, please leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice, or like and subscribe to the channel. Leave us a comment on YouTube. With that, we go to the summary quote of the day. Mr. Shan, your turn to choose. Take us away.
Yeah, I had to go with my guy, Steve B. He starts with Rohl immense, Berry with a quality chip, with Garner and NJ coming back, and hopefully Charlie and others getting healthy. I do think this team is capable of a top 7 finish. It's a little bit optimistic, but I appreciate the optimism. It is just all about consistency. The other major thing is that Jake has to stay at center back while Patterson remains at right back. But please just sign or get a loan, and we will see how good the squad can be. So I think a lot of good things there, but the first one and the second one to me, Rohl, we'll talk about it. Just I think his kind of signature Everton game and Thierno Berry's goal, just you got to appreciate it.
Yeah, I think the tail end of Steve's comment brings us nicely into one of the things we wanted to talk about today, which is we saw a back four from Everton where everyone was playing in their natural position. We see Patterson brought back into the team, allowing Jake to move to center back, which is just awesome stuff. I thought Jake was excellent today. And we have this from Jackson, kind of similar to Steve's comment. Delusional take, he prefaces, but if Patterson plays every game for the rest of the season like he did the past 2 matches, I'm okay with not signing a right back. Thought he was much better defensively, and the match fitness is definitely helping. And I think Patterson on the day, look, he had 2 tackles, he had 5 headed clearances, he had 5 recoveries. Little bit of a, maybe not the most challenging matchup for him on Villa's part on the other side, but he won his duels today. 4 for 5 in duels. He did kind of what he needed to do in a limited role, and we know he hasn't played very much. But Jake at center back, I mean, he was unreal today. He had 1 last man tackle, a couple blocks, 8 clearances, 4 of which were headed out, 5 recoveries. And this from Bugs on our Discord. There was a point around the 75th minute where they tried going over the top to Watkins. Watching Jake just run it down and casually put out that fire was so nice. Athletic center backs is a plus. And it certainly is, guys. Thoughts on the defensive setup today from the Toffees?
I think we get a much better version of James Tarkowski when you have Jake O'Brien, of course, playing there. But the lack of threats on the wings, right, when you see kind of Villa's lineup, I think allowed kind of our wing backs to be a little bit more comfortable when it came to Villa's threats, because everything was kind of happening in the center of the pitch. And so I think for us, of course, you applaud Jake for another great game at center back. It's kind of crazy because it feels like every game he plays at center back, he plays really well. But I just think as a whole, you just saw a much kind of cleaner setup defensively. And then just like we mentioned, Villa were just all over the place today from just an execution standpoint. So you give credit to us, but I think on the day for them, they were definitely not at their best.
They certainly weren't in their best in the final third. You got to give a little bit of credit to the center backs for taking Watkins out of the game by and large. We'll talk about Morgan Rogers' stats a little bit later when we start to name our player of the match. Anyway, so we'll move on.
Next up, wanted to talk about some younger players getting opportunities. We know Harrison Armstrong now featuring consistently for Everton over the last few matches, and Merlin Rohl given another opportunity today. Alongside, that's a 3-man midfield with James Garner, the senior member of that group. Of both those younger guys, do we think either of them really stood out? We talked about Rohl at the top. I think he's getting a lot of complimentary comments following today's match.
I thought Merlin just kind of showed what he's capable of, and I think you really saw it when he was kind of just more on a deeper playing on the deeper side of the field. And I just loved the ball carrying today. I loved the interplay with just our midfielders, and it finally just felt like he was a little bit more confident on what he was doing, and it felt like also too with the personnel, our midfield was all over, like on it today, right? And so you got to give credit to all 3 of them, but I just felt like from a kind of an execution standpoint, as well as just the way that Moyes, we'll get to it in regards to the tactical setup. It felt like he was just much more set up for success today, and it was just great to see him, especially, when you start out the match the way he did. I just felt like he had a little bit more confidence today. And of course, you come back from a hernia surgery, it's going to take time, even though he came back, I think, quicker than expected. But it was just really good to see him. I think what we kind of were excited about Merlin Rohl, we saw that today, I felt like.
Yeah, you saw a little bit more of the player that I think we're getting. People got to remember, Merlin wasn't very good in the Bundesliga, to be perfectly honest. He was playing a lot of it, was playing more attacking roles, but didn't necessarily look good in those attacking roles. Now, when you decompose his film and really break it down, you see the skill when he played with U21s. We talked about that. What a great ball progressor he was via pass and carry. And he obviously is a big body and a decent athlete. You finally saw a little bit of that today. Some of it was a little sloppy, but that's okay. They're trying to attack very fast off the break, especially when the game state changed a bit. The one thing I liked in both Armstrong and Rohl is you saw at least the awareness. There was a lot of checking their shoulder. There was a lot of intentionality and trying to block passing lanes, especially when the game state, like I said, changed. And didn't always work, wasn't always successful. It basically fell to James Garner to make a lot of plays. And early in the match, it was mostly tactical as to why people got behind them, but at least just got to see some glimpses. I think it's been a great opportunity for Merlin Rohl to really play a lot. And Harrison Armstrong. You saw some of Harrison Armstrong's limitations, I guess, today. Loved his tackle at the end of the match, though. That was absolutely stellar. So excellent work on that one.
Yeah, it was on Armstrong. I think you alluded to, Ryan, some of the limitations. I think what we know about Armstrong, he looks super clean on the ball. And I think we saw a little bit of that today. I mean, he had 4 touches in Villa's box.
With his strong
passes.
foot. Yes. That's worth a caveat, right?
Sure. 5 passes into the final third. He was 3 for 3 in long balls, but dispossessed 3 times, only won 2 of his 8 ground duels and none of his 3 aerial duels. So, look, no one's expecting him to be the finished article. He's kind of been pulled in as an absolute necessity, but I think as a unit of 3 players, and furthermore, one that has not really gotten a lot of minutes together, they really looked more coherent than I certainly expected.
They're just young and immature. I mean, there were times where they hung on to the ball a little too much. Maybe they were a little afraid to kind of make that pass. Like Jimmy Garner is a very decisive player at times, Dwight's kind of the opposite, so some of that fell on him. I just like picking on Dwight, I think, at this point. But the point is, there were several times he could have released the ball maybe into space and played Berry over the top. Armstrong, the one play where they did play over the top, where he just slowed the thing down, I don't understand why he didn't run after it aggressively, why he was kind of waiting for it. Little things like that are to be expected from a guy of his age, but I don't think anyone could be disappointed with what he showed so far. It'll be very interesting to see what they do with him come the end of the month.
Yeah, going to be a very interesting last couple weeks of January as we close things out, seeing what Everton will do. Last talking point before we get into the usual business. Ryan, you mentioned this was a very tactical match. You can expect that anytime Unai Emery is managing a team, and he certainly has Villa running a lot of different setups, but Moyes getting a lot of credit today from Mason in our Discord, who said Moyes was spot on tactically, impressed with how he used McNeil and the way Berry pressed goal kicks, nullifying Pau Torres' build-up, an impressive shift. We have another comment talking about from Ingva on Blue Sky, who said McNeil was better today. One reason to play him is the price we'll get when shifting him in the summer, ? Games like this will help. But want to go back to the tactical wrinkles, Ryan. We were talking a bit off air. We saw Dwight tucked in quite a bit, basically playing as another midfielder, more centrally, trying to plug things up. And we saw the game change, obviously, Villa with the sub early on with John McGinn going down injured. But talk us through kind of what you saw from.
Yeah, well, first of all, that was a response from him getting destroyed on that side. Not really his fault necessarily, but so look, just like in any sport, when you see a matchup where one team's very aggressive in a certain position, you can either counter that and be more defensive, or you can try and counter it with being more aggressive. And we didn't change the first 20 minutes. Don't get me wrong, there was some structure around the high pressure. And I think what Mason says is correct in terms of how Thierno Berry played up top, forcing the players to one side. But early in the build-up, what Emery did, which I thought was very interesting, obviously very patient build-up. We've seen this a ton of times. All their guys in the back can play with the ball pretty well. They were playing that 4-2-3-1, but normally you'd expect maybe a 10 to be the free guy coming in deeper and receiving the ball. That's not what they did. Rodgers stayed up higher and missed a lot of shots, thankfully. But what they did was they pinched in the wide guys. So Buendia and McGinn initially were tucking inside. That basically gave them four, almost in a, not really in a box midfield. They were coming in tighter just to receive the through balls. And we like to play a lot of man concepts. So you have Armstrong and Rohl typically pushing up higher to man mark their defensive mids. So now you got two different options on the wing, and James Garner stuck there. So anytime Armstrong pushed up higher and left one of the D mids for Jimmy Gardner, that was very problematic. And we kept our wide guys wide to deal with the fullbacks because they were pushed up high and wider. So I think the wrinkle was very much, and it really helped that McGinn got hurt, I think. That's because he's more of a midfielder. I mean, he's not playing out there to stretch the defense. Gassan's a very different player. He's more of a center forward, really, certainly more of a right wing. Dwight being tucked inside to deal with Buendia was just necessary. And I think probably the injury gave us time, too, to reset a little bit. But if you did notice, like Dwight took the early yellow. That was because he got beat. You know, and that's a problem. Like, Dwight has to be on those guys because he doesn't have the pace to stay with anyone. And so that's why it's like Dwight McNeil defending in the midfield, maybe not exactly what you want, but Moyes does deserve credit for the counter, and especially the way he crowded the midfield in the second half and made it much more difficult when we were playing behind the ball. That was really well done. And even though those guys weren't making a lot of defensive contributions, we'll talk about Jimmy Gardner's numbers later. It just kept falling to Jimmy Gardner, and his numbers were outrageous as a result. But I'll say this, like, if you ever really want to get into tactics and you want to watch the Premier League, watch Villa. Only because they play slower. You know, there's a method to it. And it's really fascinating the way, much like when Pep's teams are dominating the ball in the final third, what Pep does with movement in the final third, and Arteta to a certain extent, is really fascinating. But in the build-up, man, now that De Zerbi's out, man, give me Unai Emery to watch him in the build-up. Ironically, though, it's what killed them, you know, in one key moment. Although I guess you could argue, too, their lack of threat on the wings could allow us to be a little bit more aggressive. And one way you can counter off that is just push the back line up too, you know, and push your fullbacks up and deal with their fullbacks, which we did not do. So yeah, I mean, there was opportunity there, but it's very much a chess match. I like watching that. I think what's really interesting though is Villa, I feel like, is a little limited with their personnel though. You know what I mean? And that I think gets us into Villa's lineup. They've got some people out, some injuries, but I mean, this team really needs a lot more options. It's pretty remarkable that they put up the points total they have, especially, you know, you watch them there. I mean, did they look like they were that threatening, really? Certainly not in the wide areas.
Yeah, and that gets us, as Ryan mentioned, to the lineup. Quite a few injuries. Of course, Boubacar Kamara, I think, who is a massive player for them. He's out. Seems like a little bit more longer term. Amadou Onana. It's kind of a scary stat that came up in regards to the games played versus games not played with him for Villa. It's been piling up. So that brings in, of course, Bagard, who's been pretty good for them, a good young player for them.
But Sean, also the absence of those two defensive mids now, like you could put in theory someone like Yuri Tielemans playing a little higher and give him freedom to get on the ball. Now Rodgers can go out wide. I mean, how many teams could even deal with losing two defensive mids like Kamara and Onana, two of the best young defensive mids on the planet, to be perfectly honest, guys that can really move the ball as well. They could do so much for you. That's a massive downgrade and was a huge opportunity for us, I thought.
And then, of course, as you mentioned, John McGinn going out, right? So that's they are as kind of bare bones when you think of just the midfield position. And then you look at somebody like Jadon Sancho, who was out with an illness. They pretty much had zero wide threat, as you mentioned, Ryan. So you see a lot of kind of just more inverted, tucked in kind of attack down the middle. Of course, Morgan Rodgers, the engine that could, just has been excellent this season for them. Of course, today, not so much. Ollie Watkins, I think the world is kind of on his shoulders when it comes to the strike force now for Villa, that Daniel Malen has been basically kind of sold to Roma. So that kind of brings up the rumors of Tammy Abraham. They really need another striker. They really need kind of another depth, especially given the amount of competitions that they're in. But you look at the back line, I think it's interesting. Of course, Pau Torres, he's been playing better recently. Of course, today has been a tough day for him. Ezri Khan's as reliable as they come. But the wingbacks are great. Right? Matty Cash has been as good as you can get for them. And take your pick with Ian Maatsen or Lucas Digne. I think they both are very, very good. And you can't say enough about Emi Martinez. Finally, a day like today, we finally get kind of the benefit of somebody like Emi not, having a worldie against Everton. But it's a lineup where I think when I first saw it come out, I'm like, this is not, the kind of craziest Villa lineup that we've seen, and they, they're third in the Premier League, right? So it's like they've obviously been excellent. They've been on a great run of form since September. So that's not to say that this is like a lineup where Everton should feel incredibly optimistic, but it's a lineup where you see that there are definitely holes when you look at the wide play as well as just the midfield.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a team sheet that I look at and I think this team is anywhere near title contenders. And we know that they've overperformed 17 points above their expected points total per Understat. So they've been pretty lucky. I mean, they've been as lucky as anyone in this league for some time. And when you weaken some of their options, as you say, you put Morgan Rogers kind of more centrally pushed forward. You're having Buendia, who's really wants to be more in those central areas, and I think he was today. But that's your wing guy. Like, that's just not really going to, I think, cause a lot of problems. And they could have had a huge opportunity to exploit Nathan Patterson at right back. They just didn't really have the personnel to take full advantage.
No, they have very good fullbacks that can get forward, but it's different attacking with the fullback and attacking with a winger that has the freedom to really take guys on and be loose. I mean, they may end up, Leon Bailey's loan might get canceled. Like, Lookman maybe, which, he's 28 now. It's just, I don't know what you do. They need some guys that can play with a little bit of verticality or at least have some pace in the wide areas. I think they've got to make some moves here if they want to keep into the Champions League spots. Plus 17 differential between your actual points and your expected points. I think there are two other teams that are outperforming, but it's like +7, +10. No one else is close to those. One's Sunderland. You know what I mean? It's just, you just shake your head. And you saw it today, right? I never really thought, don't get me wrong, Rodgers missed some very obvious plays, but I almost feel like, and this is kind of a crazy thing to say, that Emery's tactics are kind of what created chances. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but honestly, he had a clever way of playing today, but I just don't think they're going to create a whole lot by themselves.
Would agree. Yeah, I think they're kind of limited. And that said, look, this team's still 11 wins in a row at home. Like, they're an unbeaten streak. Like, they are on an incredible
tough place
run
to play
of results, regardless of the performances. And this has been now the second time Everton have ended pretty lengthy streaks for teams, obviously with Palace earlier in the season. And it almost got off into like a dreamland start when Merlin Rohl hit the post inside the first 10 seconds. That was completely unexpected, but it was not necessarily a sign of how the first half would go, because I think Everton after that, it was very much Villa for like the following 10 minutes. Did find it interesting, Jack Grealish getting booed. That's just doesn't kind of sit right with me, but what are you going to do? I can't read the psyche of the Villa fan base. I don't have my finger quite on the pulse. But Everton, I think Villa's press early. We struggled a little bit building out from the back. Rohl had a giveaway in about the 10th minute that led to a Villa shot. And within the first 12-ish minutes, it was 3/4 of the ball to Villa. Everton had like 14% possession. But just 2 minutes after that is when John McGinn goes down, holding his knee. It didn't look like it was like anything super crazy, but he has to come off. And we talked about it a moment ago. Evan Gasson being prepared to come on in very, very different profiles. I think that caused things to kind of have to go out the window for Emery.
Yeah, massive impact to them. It kind of changed the entire game state and gave Everton a chance to regroup, right? As you mentioned, James, just getting completely dominated throughout the first kind of 10 to 15 minutes. And then it, like you mentioned, I think it's just not a great tactical change for them. Not, the personnel is so limited right now, being out 3 center midfielders. And then we get to kind of the 23rd minute where Dwight McNeil, he picks up a yellow. It's just one of those where Buendia gets past them, right? And it's a pretty easy call. I think there was a lot of conversation on the Discord whether it was a yellow or not. I think it's pretty clear cut to me. And then you get to the 30th minute where it's a really great through ball by Yuri Tillmans to Gassan, who makes a smart run and can't get the shot clearly off. And that's kind of the theme of the day for Villa with just a lot of their chances.
Yeah, I think we were getting kind of cut open a little bit in these moments. McNeil just gets beat for pace. He doesn't close down well enough, and he has to foul there, take the yellow. And then Tielemans, when he's sitting kind of deeper and he can pick a pass, there's no doubt about that. That's
no doubt
something he's extremely talented at doing. So it was a little bit worrying because Everton weren't creating much, and even though Villa weren't getting a ton of threatening shots on goal, they were, cutting us open a little bit and just getting into some dangerous positions.
But they still didn't quite have the personnel to totally exploit it. I mean, there was no one. I mean, the fact that Dwight can get burned out wide a couple times left. I mean, the fact that he can get burned anyway by anyone, really. And it was interesting, too, because Pato didn't really have to step forward and make that many defensive plays, at least early. I think that was problematic, too, from a matchup standpoint, especially when you started getting later into the match. Pato sitting deeper really required Dwight to continue to step deeper, and Dwight's not going to defend that well in this space, even if he's clever. And yeah, we started to match up a little bit better with them in the midfield, but Gassan's an interesting player. He's kind of a dynamic player. So it seemed like everything that we generated, though, was really off set pieces, but credit to us for getting the ball deeper and generating the chances that created set pieces to begin with.
I think we have to talk about, at least briefly, the goal from the corner that was ruled out. It starts with actually a short corner, which is interesting. Not something we see Everton do a ton, but it's a give and go with Grealish and James Garner. It's the cross to Jake O'Brien. Heads it in really well, but it's ruled out because allegedly Armstrong is he is offside on the cross. He's ruled to be interfering with the play. I saw a lot of people really upset at this call. It's kind of just thrown into the mixer. Armstrong is right in front of Jake O'Brien, and I do think he's influencing the play here. It's fine margins, but I guess I wasn't super upset thinking this is like some sort of rigged call. I'm not sure if you guys felt differently.
I agree with you, James. I think, of course, it's just unfortunate, like Everton PTSD when these things happen, right? It's just you want to blame the PGMOL, but I think it's unfortunate just because I don't really think Harrison Armstrong was trying to do anything wrong. Like, it's just, he's not like on the post or whatnot. It's just, I think it's just really unlucky. It's a good header, of course, by Jake. I mean, great, everything on Jake's end. I can see the argument, unfortunately, both ways. I know it's not the greatest answer, but I see both sides of it, right? Like, it's not clear cut to where it's like, Everton once again are getting we need to make a league statement from this specific call. It's just kind of one of those where you could convince me either way.
Yeah, I think the problem is that the perception exists that we never get these. And so when I look at the language, it's like, okay, you didn't touch the ball or anything. Interfering with an opponent by preventing the opponent from playing, no. Clearly obstructing the opponent's line of vision, no, that's not it. Challenging an opponent for the ball. I mean, he didn't really challenge the guy for the ball, though. I mean, it went over him, and Jake was in the challenge. Clearly attempting to play a ball, which is close when this action impacts on an opponent, or make an obvious action which clearly impacts on the ability of, okay, it wasn't obvious. So I guess it's clearly attempting to play a ball, which is close when this action impacts on an opponent. It's debatable. I mean, he's definitely trying to play the ball. He's not going to get it. I mean, it's well over his head. Not well over his head, and he is close to the ball. I mean, for sure.
I think the thing is he's offside. He cuts back, and then he's just kind of in the vicinity, in the mixer. He's battling. Like, there's a little bit of pushing and shoving going on, and it's very easy to say, okay, well, if he's not involved in the play at all, he's just standing there. Maybe his man is able to rise up and win the header. I don't know, but I agree that the main frustration point here is that it feels like if that is a Villa goal, that they don't rule it out.
Like, well, they waved it off. That's what the key is. I mean, you can't say it's clear and obvious error. They called it on the pitch. The line called it on the pitch and called him off. My problem is, did he call Harrison Armstrong off or did he call Jake off?
Right.
That's what I want to know. Like, to me, there's not enough to reverse the call. Fine. If you tell me that Armstrong affected the play, he was clearly in an offside position, that was the initial call. We went the review. We didn't see, that's fine. That's good use of VAR. Because otherwise you go to the monitor. You know what I mean? And so to me, that's the issue. So, like, I understand not going to the monitor if you feel like it's not something that you need to look at because you stick with the initial call. I would love to know, though. What do you bet? The line thought that Jake was off.
I actually think there's a decent likelihood of that, to be honest.
Well, I know.
But we'll just never know.
And
we'll
that,
just never know.
maybe not. But that I do have a problem with if that's what happened. But okay, these things happen, right? There's no reason to get upset about something that is 50-50, wishy-washy, whatever.
Sure.
So,
right. So we
would have been nice.
It sure would have been nice.
Held the header.
It almost came back to bite us because Rodgers, just a couple minutes later, has back-to-back shots. He has 2 shots on target. I think Pickford forced into 2 saves. This is, again, with Dwight getting kind of skated by. Rodgers was driving. And then Villa, this is where Buendia plays it to Tielemans. Another good cross to Gasson. Gasson was looking to kind of crash that far post pretty consistently. And he loops it over Pickford, hits the crossbar. I mean, this is right on the cusp of halftime. Almost a very kind of sick turn of events for Everton from going potentially 1-0 up to 1-0 down. But regardless, it's all level at the break getting into things.
I mean, Pick misplays this, doesn't he? I mean, you can't go halfway, right? I feel like he got stuck out in no man's land. It would have been unfortunate. I mean, obviously we know Jordan Pickford is a great keeper, but yeah, I mean, he looked so sad when the ball was going over his head. You know, it's like, oh my God, is this going to go in? So, but hey, we'll take it. We're even for balls off the post, and we move on to halftime.
Yeah, that's right. And we get into half, and no surprises that Villa dominated the ball. 62% possession. They had slightly better chances, although, again, they had the one off the bar. 0.82 XG to Everton's 0.34, but level on shots at 6 apiece. Villa have the 3 on target. Again, 2 of those were kind of back-to-back from Rodgers, so slightly misleading. Interesting, Everton very effective with the long ball, 63% in the first half. You saw us having some success with that, maybe a bit of foreshadowing there. And Ryan, I remember you leaving a comment at halftime. Keep doing that. Keep going long. Force their center backs to make plays.
Yeah, I just don't think they look, if they're going to push up higher like they always do, because Villa tends to play a fairly high line. I mean, they'll be patient and when they break the press, but then they'll push up. They pushed up, I mean, ridiculously high line in the second half, but they had no answer for Berry. Berry's gotten so much better at the early bump to give himself 3 free headers. Konza's not going to be able to deal with him. That's a total physical mismatch. And Torres, although very skilled and not a small guy, is nowhere near as physical or as capable in the air. And to me, Berry had a great matchup. So that was a lot of it, and credit to Berry. He was all over those. Did we do a great job running off of them? No. I think sometimes Berry was just so shocked that in this league, where normally you're getting absolutely mauled, that he had so many opportunities to kind of flick one off or 2. But yeah, I mean, look, they were going to pressure. We weren't good at retaining the ball, sadly. We're down a bunch of guys. So I thought, yeah, why the heck not? Get some guys around him and see if you can't get one that way. I think it was important, though, getting into the second half, though, that's not going to necessarily win you a match, but you can sit back behind it and play off that a little bit. I think it was fair to ask the question, though, that, okay, we had adjusted a little bit, clogged the midfield a bit, maybe dropping Armstrong deeper and made it a little tougher for them to play through us. But where the heck were we going to create anything from? Because we really were not creating anything from open play. I mean, not true open play,
Yeah, I mean, and you also think from a Villa perspective, right? Given the results that happened on the weekend, it's kind of all for them, right? To go after the game, and for Everton's point of view, it's just like I think most of us would have been like, you leave Villa Park with a point, we're pretty happy. You leave with 3, you're over the moon, and of course it starts in just pure fashion with James Garner getting a yellow. I think just with taking down Buendia. It's just kind of a bang-bang play. It's one of those where he's just got to be careful, of course, going into the rest of the game. Can't afford to lose him. And, of course, as we mentioned, the amount of defensive contributions, we didn't lose him. But then it goes to the 49th, back-to-back chances for Villa. The second one, of course, being Yuri Tillman's heading wide. So it's just, I think Villa's, once again, starting out, like we mentioned, on the front foot. They see the game. They see the opportunity. And it's just a matter of, can we hold ourselves? Can we have the resolve to just, at least contain?
Yeah, and then speaking of Everton opportunities from open play, this was maybe a little bit of a wasteful one because it's a decent Everton counter. Grealish and Armstrong's kind of overlapping, making the forward run. And Ryan, you just mentioned Thierno Berry. He wins the initial header really well, knocking it down to set up this break. And Grealish, I think, lays it off for Garner running onto it, and it's a deep shot. I mean, it's 35 yards out, and it goes way over. Love the ambition, but when you're not creating a ton from open play, it might be a little bit wishful thinking. A couple minutes later, Jack gets taken down by Bogard. Jack was trying to draw fouls all afternoon.
This was a nasty one, though.
It was. It was definitely tough coming together, and Jack looked like he was in quite a bit of pain. A totally fair yellow, totally warranted here. And then this is where James Garner's discipline, I think, is just this play sums it up. It was almost very costly, but Garner is kind of running with Rodgers, can't tactically foul him because he just picked up the yellow like 10 minutes prior, has to let him go by. He kind of puts his hand in Rodgers' back as Rodgers is running toward the box. Rodgers throws himself forward to try to get the call, but Shan, I think you mentioned it just a short time before we started recording. I think the referee overall did a pretty good job today, for especially on this type of play, swallowing your whistle, not getting enticed by the play acting of Rodgers.
I mean, for us, maybe.
I thought the ref,
this is a foul. I mean, I'm sorry. I think this is a foul.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the ref probably had one of his better games from an Everton point of view today. Of course, you'll miss calls. Any good ref is going to miss some calls during the match. But I thought, for the most part, I thought he was incredibly fair, and I think got the big ones right. I will say this though, Morgan Rodgers, of course, he's an incredible football player, but he's got to be on the Olympic diving team for England, because some of the things that he was doing today just were ridiculous.
He was on tilt, too. I mean, he really was. Especially as the game went on. And almost to an embarrassing standpoint. I'm sure it was frustrating for him. He wasn't playing very well. I get it. I will say this, though. I just did not see a play like this coming. The way Unai Emery plays, I mean, there is a little bit of a risk to it. Now, I'm sure that many of our English counterparts are going to say, just fire the ball up there, and they're going to criticize some of these types of tactics, but it's worked for Emery in the past. But this is just a massively opportunistic play and a really exciting one. And to me, Thierno Berry, man, hats off.
I mean, it's an amazing play from Thierno. It's about as route one as you could possibly get in English football. It is direct from pick, straight back to their center halves. Normally like a kind of a nothing play. I think it's Konza. Is it Torres or Konza here?
Torres is the one that lets it sit in front of him and makes the bad play. I mean, it's an error. I mean, and he leaves it for Dwight.
Yes. And so Konza's header kind of goes to McNeil. He settles it. McNeil, if nothing else, he's able to get off kind of a quick shot on his left, which he does. And I think you have to say also this is an error from Emi Martinez. He can't catch it. It does have a decent amount of pace on it, but it comes kind of in his chest and he just can't gather it. And the awareness and the execution from Thierno Berry to chip this, to loft it, and it squeaks over the line. They're almost able to bike it out, but I mean, this is composure at its finest from Thierno Berry. Had a good game up to this point, but as you said, Ren, did not see this goal coming, and happy to see the bow and arrow celebration come out for Berry.
Yeah, I think the problem with the play is, I mean, Konza's header is perfectly fine. He brings it down, but when he passes it to Torres makes a terrible touch and just hands the ball to Dwight with 23 yards out here. I agree with you on Emi. I mean, maybe he misjudged the ball. I mean, Dwight is a pretty good shooter. He doesn't hit this with any velocity, and maybe he just thought he could track it down and catch it very easily. But he probably should have parried this thing away if he could have. And I think that's a big flaw. But I'm telling you right now, to be able to have the feet that Thierno Berry has, first of all, he stayed on by a mile, gets to the ball first, and then with his left foot, chips this thing up. Now, maybe Konza could have, 50-50 chance of getting to the ball. It would have been a very good play in the corner. But I'm telling you, this finish is unbelievable. There is no way a guy Berry's size should have his feet, his agility, and his finesse to make this play. I mean, it was in the air forever. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, is this going to go in? It's a spectacular goal, in my opinion. It is the highest degree of difficulty. I was so impressed by this play. I think even he was kind of like, wow, I think this is going to count. This is pretty cool. Grealish is like, you scored, buddy. Like,
I mean, if every chip had the flavor that Berry's shot had in England, then fish and chips wouldn't be as average as they are. But I mean, yeah, it's just have you been waiting?
How long you been waiting to throw that in there?
Hey, I mean, this is what I'm asking for, right? But Thierno Berry, just an incredible finish. But like you mentioned, Ryan, just you look at that triangle of errors. I mean, really, Pau Torres, I think, has a lot to do with this. But Emi, for as good as he is, like, he puts it in the worst position you possibly can put it in. Like, it's almost
really
like,
does.
yeah, I mean, you couldn't have, if he puts it in front of him even, it's a better place to put it in. But just, he literally puts it in the worst possible position. Ezri Konsa almost makes the play of, like, the season with how he almost takes us out. So I give him credit for, like, at least trying, because he was pretty close. But, like, you look at just how, I mean, we talk about confidence, right, for Thierno Berry as we've kind of progressed through the season, and it's just really good to see him, I think, confident. In a day like today, right, where you mentioned he's not really getting much support from anybody when he's winning these through balls. I think Thierno Berry earlier in the season would have let that, kind of take away from his focus, but I think just given how much more confidence he's playing, as you mentioned, just he's just it's just this is a big moment for him, massive goal, and it's nice for him to score a key goal that isn't against Nottingham Forest.
I'll tell you what's more important too. I mean, the fact that he had the composure to chip it, because Emi makes the play where he lays himself out. If he tries to go low on it, which is what you would think he might do, he's not scoring. Like, there's no way it's getting through him. The fact that he chipped it the way he did, and I will also counter with this. I am sorry, but Yanni's is great in terms of fish and chips, and Johnny English in the evening is great and in a great area. So if you're in Liverpool, do not listen to Shan. Okay, fish and chips is a perfectly legitimate cuisine. I know we're spoiled in America with all the different types of foods we have, and I know you eat more healthy than other people, you Colorado hippie. But the bottom line is, if you like fish and chips at all, Liverpool's got fantastic fish and chips. So
the fish is perfectly fried. It just has no flavor, right? I mean, that's as simple as that. It's like I think I'm pretty objective about it. So Lisi, though, is going to take me to a chippy, and I'm open to change, right? So if he takes me to one and it's incredible, I'll completely change my tune. You have my word.
You just don't like fish and chips. Like, you can't say
I
that
do
they
like
don't
fish
have...
and chips.
No,
like,
you don't.
Yeah.
You clearly don't. Johnny English, Yanni's, go.
As someone very partial to fish and chips myself, I have to side with Ryan. There are good ones to be found, but I also understand Sean's point. Some seasoning doesn't always hurt. In any case, Everton up 1-0. Villa have, I think, won the most points from losing positions in the Premier League this season. This has been one of the ways in which I think they've overperformed to such a degree, is that they've shown tremendous resilience in coming back from losing positions. So the outstanding question is, what would they be able to create? Would they put us under pressure? And I think the goal does represent an inflection point in that things shifted after this point, and Villa really did push aggressively to get the equalizer.
High line, on the ball the whole time, but I think part of the problem is they're looking at the bench thinking, who am I going to bring on to make a big impact? And look, Sean is our resident Premier League expert. Sean, tell us in detail about George Hemmings. Like, seriously, that's your alternative? Like Dean in for Madsen, which Lucas Dean's a good attacking fullback, a good all-around fullback too, much better defensive player than Evertonians might say, but him and Madsen are, I mean, that's a like for like to me. They don't have the options right now.
I feel like we were like on an episode of like Next Gen MLS with some of these kids like getting opportunities. Like, who is George Hemmings? Who is Yamaldine Jamo? Like, I don't know who these guys are. It kind of makes me a little bit sad, because it's just like, I feel like anytime I look at a bench, I know exactly what's happening. It happened also too with Nottingham Forest this year. So it's just, I mean, they're giving the kids opportunities, and I'm sure that's music to Everton's ears. But yeah, George Hemmings comes on for Bigard, who I thought had a good day overall. And like you mentioned, kind of a luxury of riches, right, at left back for Villa, right, to bring on Lucas Digne for Ian Matson, who I thought was okay. And so, yeah, as you mentioned, Ryan, I wish I can give you a tactical analysis of George Hemmings, but unfortunately today I cannot.
And to be respectful of Jamaldine Jamo, it's Jamone / Aloba. So, I don't want to favor one parent versus the other if that's his situation. So they stole him from West Brom, by the way, if we really want to talk about that. Anyway, yeah, it's ridiculous. I never thought a team would miss Ross Barkley as much as they did. Even Ross Barkley would have helped them. But anyway, to Everton's credit, though, I mean, we did a good job making it tough for them to really break through and get massive opportunities. They did have some big chances earlier in the match. What big chances did they really have in the second half? Really not too many. They had, they made a couple chances. We'll talk about those in a second. But really, I mean, nothing massive to speak of.
Yeah, I think it's really just two chances in the final 10 minutes plus stoppage time. There was the one where
Some volume, James, right? I mean, there was a number of them, but
a lot of shots, but the most threatening one was the most dangerous opportunity was at the very death, the Buendia header off that Tielemans hit that ended up well wide. But they were finding space on occasion. I mean, right after Digne came on, or not long after he came on, he got played in down the left. There was a long cross, but again, the way that move ends is Digne trying to bike it, and it goes straight at Jordan Pickford. So getting in some threatening areas, but not really able to execute very much. We saw the obligatory Beto for Berry sub. Beto came on and tried to wreak a little bit of havoc and did so a little successfully. A couple slips. Things were getting very slippery late on in the match. I mean, people were falling over all over
Berry
the place.
just wiped out, like,
I know,
snipered.
Exactly.
You know what I think was such a shame too? I think if there was one reason to be critical, especially the midfielders and Dwight for Everton, is release the ball here. Villa's so pushed up high, and we know how good Beto is, and Berry is decent at it too, how good Beto is in getting in behind. And there were so many times like where we won the ball, picked up a recovery, and just didn't release the ball. But look, deserve a lot of credit. I mean, what would it have taken to score? It would have taken a miracle shot by Rodgers that Pickford made a phenomenal save on, or the Buendia header, which if he scores off that, I mean, that would have been amazing. I mean, it's a really good cross in terms of how much heat it had on it, but none of those would have been, I mean, they weren't massive chances. Those were just pretty interesting attempts at it. Yeah, a couple chances we had, a couple opportunities, but really you look at the numbers after the goal and you know, there was volume there too, but I thought we did okay taking care of the ball too and not giving it up and giving them counterattacking chances too.
What I'll also say too is just I don't know what got into Villa with just fouling. Like some of the worst just unnecessary fouls. Of course, Morgan Rogers just kind of the architect, right, for a lot of those. But it just felt like they were just getting kind of frustrated for no reason. So many errant passes, right, that almost just kind of like let Everton rest. Which was really good. And like you mentioned, Ryan, I think Beto actually did a pretty good job of just like being so physical with the center backs that, you know, of course he had his Bambi moment in the box like he typically does. Just unfortunate for him just to not stay up. But just one of those where it just felt like they almost didn't need to get as frustrated as they were. And it just played into Everton's hands, which I think for us, you know, we were overjoyed with.
Yeah, and I think we showed some good composure, especially with how limited we've been. Merlin Rohl had that really nice just hesitation move on the ball to draw a foul. Like we were preventing them from really building up too much momentum, taking the sting out of the game. So important in a road match like this, a place, again, we've struggled mightily against Villa in the league since they've come back in. So I think that there was a lot of composure, a lot of late running done by the team to track back. And Ryan, you alluded to it, the numbers after the goal, I mean, 4-1 in dispossessions, 10-0 in shots from Villa, but they only had one shot that had an XG above 0.05. So very low percentage opportunities. And I think the resolute defense from Everton deserves some credit for that.
Yeah, there's some great individual performances, but before we get to that, just kind of look in those second half stats. I mean, to have the ball 65% of the time, more than half in a game state where they need to score, and their XG number was 0.54. You know, 12 total shots, but you start dividing that's not much. Only 2 on target, and no big chances missed. Like, think about that. That to me is the key. We really didn't give up that big chance. And yeah, they kept the ball really well, and that's really nice. But yeah, Shan, it's unbelievable. 11 fouls committed in the second half by Villa. I mean, that's just... I don't know. We'll get to who I thought the true MVP was in a second, but I did want to hit good performances because I do think there were some standouts today for Everton. But everyone put a shift into. I mean, it was definitely a bit of a blood and guts performance, and Everton deserve a lot of credit for how well they hung in there. And look, it's tough to go up like that against a team that's got the ball the whole time and play that long. And I do think Villa made a lot of mental mistakes. Shan, your point in giving us rests, I mean, you want to talk about Villa not having options. I mean, take a look at our bench, for heaven's sakes. Other than the one guy who has no business being on the bench, I mean, we just don't have options. We had some options maybe to come on to maybe impact a game attacking-wise, but defensively we had nothing. So, I think that puts in some of these good performances within context.
I think it does. And I'll go first. I went with Thierno Berry. I think just for the finish alone, the chip, the ability to get the height on that from such a close distance and for it to come back down, sensational. But beyond that, we talked about a lot of the good things he did otherwise. He was 9 for 16 in passes, 56%, but his only shot was that shot. And it was a 0.16 XG opportunity. He turns into 0.67 post-shot XG. Just shows the quality of the chance. Nice. Thank you, Ryan. It was great.
I mean, he won 6 or 7 aerials out of 10, right?
Yeah, 6 out of 10. Very good. Let's just
How tall
keep
is
it
he?
rolling.
He's not quite 6'7", but maybe
he's
6'5".
about 6'4", 6'5".
Sorry, bad.
Couple recoveries just caused problems for their center halves all day. So I would give him credit just for the winner, but I think he did a lot of stuff off the ball that was really encouraging as well. Bit of a maybe favorable matchup for him, but he took advantage. And I think we're just seeing the ongoing development of Thierno Berry over the course of this season. He's finally into a bit of a rhythm, and it's very exciting to see.
Yeah, and I've done well in the stock market this year, but my Jimmy Garner stock to buy the season, I think has been the best investment I've made. And what a game for good old Jimmy Garner. 14 recoveries, 7 tackles, 4 interceptions, 4 clearances, 1 key pass, 9 passes into the final third, 5 for 7 on long balls, as we mentioned, right, Ryan? It's just long balls. Strategy was sound, 89.6 pass accuracy, 2 fouls, 1. I mean, just did an incredible job today in the midfield. I think we're seeing the progression, right, of just this just kind of gem that we have on our hands. It's just, I think, as we mentioned too, it's just so exciting for him, not only on the England picture, but for him to just be healthy, right? I think that's just been, unfortunately, a really just tough part of his Everton career, is he's never really come into a season healthy. And so for him to just also be able to play a position that he's more familiar with, even with all of our injuries and whatnot, he's just been a constant theme and a massive reason why we're ending our match week in the top half this season.
And we know he can be valuable from a flexibility standpoint, a positional flexibility standpoint, and maybe his best position's not sitting back, but he was almost forced to do that today. And that's the interesting part about it. I mean, Armstrong and Rohl, for all their effort in the middle and all their, checking their shoulder and trying to get in passing lanes, they each only had 1 tackle and 1 interception. Like, think about that. I think Jack and Dwight had 1 defensive contribution each. So that's 6 defensive contributions from those guys and 11 from Jimmy Garner. I mean, it's just totally absurd, really. I mean, what a fantastic match he had. I mean, and playing with the yellow for as long as he did.
Yeah, I mean, when James Garner came into the season with the yellow highlights or the blonde highlights, I did not expect him to level up his game the way he has. It's been so impressive. And Shan, I mean, you rattled through those
Touched by
stats.
God.
Yeah.
That's what those highlights are.
He's just leveled up in every aspect. You got to glow up. He's just that laundry list of stats you went through, Shan, is ridiculous. I mean, 7 tackles, 4 interceptions, 4 clearances. And he did so much of it on the yellow. The level of discipline to avoid that second yellow on that play on Rodgers, and maybe it was a foul, whatever. But with how inexperienced the midfield was around him, he really just took it to a different level today. And Shan, your bit has been to pick him for man of the match every single week, basically. But it's not even a bit at this point, because he is amongst the best performers consistently almost every single time he steps on the pitch. It's incredible.
Yeah, and just before we kind of move on to Ryan's, which I think is the best of the day, we have this comment from Emily at EJT816. We look better than we had any business looking. Important for morale just as much as those 3 points. Keep the Jimmy Garner glove going. Of course we will. He's an all-time bargain at this point, up the Toffees. So, credit to you, Emily. I think it's a great comment, and I promise you I will do my best to make the Jimmy Garner love stay as well.
Right, moving on to kind of my take on positive performances. For Everton, I took Morgan Rodgers. To his credit, he engaged in 11 duels today. He won approximately none of them. Think about that. I mean, the duel stat's kind of ridiculous, but, I mean, 0 for 11. He did have 6 shots. He knocked out 2 spectators, endangered several other members doing that, only hit 2 of those on target. 1 great shot out of nothing to his credit, but you're not beating Pickford from that. It's ironic that was his best attempt on goal, considering all the layups he got before. And once we finally adjusted, I mean, we weren't giving those up anymore. 7 touches in the box. And to his credit, he also led Aston Villa and the entire match in committing 4 fouls. So congratulations, Morgan Rogers. You basically handed us the game on a silver platter. They really lacked attacking impetus. You were the one guy that could have made a difference for them, and you did not. So thank you very much. We appreciate that. In all seriousness, I thought probably Jake O'Brien. I mean, Jake maybe didn't. We talked about some of his numbers earlier. Won all 3 of his duels, 5 recoveries, 8 clearances. Kind of those are the numbers maybe we didn't hit. But it's just the difference he makes. I mean, he gives Tark a little more ability to sit back, play more positionally. Tark doesn't have to really run out and make as many plays. Jake was really all over the pitch at times. And, he may lack nuance in some areas, but you just cannot teach 6'5", 6'6" with his feet and his ability to run back. And you already made the comment on the Watkins play. I love that so much because, the other thing is, too, he doesn't say that much out on the pitch. You could tell he doesn't run his mouth off, but God forbid someone eventually makes him angry with his history as a pugilist. And I just cannot wait, and I hope Moyes doesn't do something dumb, but give me Jake O'Brien and Jared Branthwaite as a pairing. Like Twin Tower stuff. Like, who the heck is going to play through those guys with not just their ability to not just their size, but the pace. Both of them are pretty good ball players. Jake sometimes got a little aggressive today trying to make passes, but there were chances and risks worth taking, I think. So kudos to him. It just seems like every time he's back there, guys, he puts just a massive performance forward.
Yeah, outstanding. Love to see him at center back. We also have to give Jordan Pickford, I think, an honorable mention. We skipped over it in the timeline, but you alluded to it with the Morgan Rogers one shot out of nothing. That save from Pickford, that diving save to tip it over the bar, was incredible. And he had 5 saves on the day and was also 52% on his long balls. So great distribution, great shot stopping. The 2 kind of hallmarks of when you have a really top tier Jordan Pickford performance, those are the things that typically stand out most. And I thought he was in fine form today. So wanted to make sure he got an honorable mention. Also had Nathan Patterson on here. We talked about some of his numbers earlier. Stepping in. He is what he is. I think we're well aware of what Nathan Patterson can offer this Everton team at this point. I think this was probably pretty close to maybe the best version of it. At least at right back and not like a right back.
Look, if this is how he's going to play, though, I mean, he has a place on a team like that. I mean, you'd love to have someone at right back that was a better all-around player that could dominate a little bit more. He was playing back at times. He makes some quizzical decisions. You kind of shake your head a little bit at him. But in his defense, he's never really been given the opportunity to truly develop. And look, it facilitates Jake to come back and play center back. I just hope Moyes doesn't go back. I would rather see Pato play than see the Keane, Tark, Jake back line. I know we weren't that dynamic in attack, but against a lesser team, I like this setup better. I just think it gives you a lot more options. You have more alternatives.
So think, right, Iliman Ndiaye on the right side with Pato, and then you have, let's just say if this dream scenario happens with Jake and JB, right? It's just, I think why I wanted to put Pato in as an honorable mention as well is just I felt like in the box today he was just much smarter than he usually is. Like just some of these clearances, right, he was just more on let's just take the safe route rather than just try to do something, just completely just weird. And so credit to him, but it's also a matchup situation, right, where Villa just didn't have the threat in the wings. I think when you look at some of our future matchups, right, I think this is where you could get a little creative if you're David Moyes. And if you see kind of a pacey winger, that's probably not the guy, you want defending that. And that's maybe where, this kind of dream of a back 3 can happen. And you look at some of our other options. But I think for, Jackson's comment earlier, right, especially in kind of the next match, give Nathan Patterson another shot. I think we need to, if anything, there's no negative to this. I think you're increasing his value as well as just you're using the squad, a player on the squad to play their actual position and putting Jake, of course, back at center.
I mean, if you're not going to loan him out, especially, or you can't find a taker, at least in the interim before the end of January, I'll say this too. You put Garner on that side and you put Ndiaye on that side. Very different situation. Now he can even get forward a little bit more. Garner can cover for him. I mean, he's a legitimate defensive midfielder in a way. I think it's a different opportunity for him. And look, Dwight, to his credit, may be positionally astute, but Dwight can't go out and really mark someone like that too. So I understand why Pato might have been pushed back a little bit. But he did fine. He did fine. He did what was asked. And I think you're right on the backside defense, Sean, in particular. Like sometimes he gets lost and was trapped. I mean, he seemed a little more locked in today. A couple flick-on headers he did pretty well with. Moving into listener comments, the most important one for me every week is the Everton Happy Sad Reversible Critter Ball soft toy. And to me, it was very happy. And Bluest, I think, appreciated that. He knows his role in the Discord. He played it well. Yeah, so no reversing necessary. Well, we did reverse. We've been a little bit sad recently. Maybe after the lineup was announced, we were a little sad to get no Dibbling and get Dwight in there. But very quickly, especially after the Berry insane chip, it was a very happy, sad, reversible Critter Ball soft toy. It's 17 centimeters. I don't know if I mentioned that.
No, I think you have, Ryan, quite a few times.
Just checking.
Yeah, maybe 67 if we're really just counting. But going into thoughts and prayers, there are some really good ones this week, and I really want to start out with, I think, Thomas Frank.
Things are getting weird, Sean, in the league.
The prayers are for Thomas Frank. The thoughts are for Brentford. So Thomas Frank is just not having a good time right now at Spurs. I think, the kind of just, fraudulent kind of accusations are coming out for him. It's kind of hard to really fight those, just given the horrible home form, as well as just you can't lose to West Ham at home. Especially to Callum Wilson scoring the game winner at the death. I don't even know what Callum Wilson thinks now and just what team he's going to be on. It was crazy to me. I thought he was already gone from West Ham. So. But then I think
they're killing the contract. He just boom, there he is.
Yeah, the pay to play contract is, I guess, like Boost Mobile in the past. But we go to Brentford, and I think the thoughts go to them. It's just really well-oiled machine, right? And I think you have to kind of really give credit to them. Keith Andrews, of course, just has done a great job. But it makes you really kind of appreciate, as we kind of have done our PL previews and just look at teams that they are really a well-run club. And I think, Thomas Frank is just, it's going to be tough if he loses this job, because I wonder where he goes from there. But the one I'm really most excited about is Olivier Glasner. It is turning into an English telenovela with what has gone on at Crystal Palace. He is just, saying his heart has been ripped twice of losing Mark Gahey, of course, to City. That should be announced this week. Eberechi Eze, with then, of course, the announcement that he will not be there going into the summer, and just there are rumors that he might lose his job. I think they still have too much to play for in Europe, so it is just turning into quite the kind of drama-filled scenario. And I think the funniest thing to me that was seen is Fabrizio basically was talking about this and put the German flag, not the Austrian flag. So it's just, he can't catch a break, this guy. It's just really thoughts and both prayers. And then the next one, of course, this one's kind of near and dear to me, is just Bo Nix and Josh Allen. Just a really horrible moment yesterday for Bo Nix. Of course, as a diehard Broncos fan, just hate to see it. It gets announced that he tore 2 of his bones in his ankle, so he'll be out the rest of the postseason. Of course, Josh Allen, you just feel for the guy. It's just not happening. But yeah, just thoughts and prayers to both of them. Really, condemning all the folks that have just said nasty things about Bo. That it's karma of some sorts. I don't think he's the guy to deserve that. But I think some really good thoughts and prayers this week, in both football leagues. And then we get to score predictions, a lot of them. So I want to give a big shout out to On Blue, who not only got the score prediction correct, but they got the score, Thierno Berry. So you get 2 points. Good job On Blue. And then a bunch of them, Sleazy, myself, Tony Two Toes, Sludvigs, Bozy Blues, Holderness, Win Freaky 12, and lastly, FM Warrior 19. We're going to keep a running tally. I promise we will have like a kind of a halfway standing soon. Just need to compile them. But then upcoming pods, of course, Leeds. We play once again, guys, on another Monday. Would you believe it? So it's just the Mondays are piling up for Everton this season. And then maybe a transfer window recap, of course, if anything happens. But last thoughts from any of you two.
Just a massive win. Lots of character, and maybe one that we weren't expecting, but that's how this game works sometimes too, and guys deserve a lot of credit. Just one moment of magic, and sometimes that's all that it takes. And I certainly don't feel bad about taking advantage of a team that has a lot of injuries and other people out, because heaven's sakes, look at our roster.
Amen to that. I've gone into so many away matches this season just expecting, at the best case scenario, 1 point. And now we have 4 wins on the road, some of which have been incredibly impressive. So this was one that I would have snapped your hand off for a single point. We leave with all 3. Hard to be too upset with that, given how weak we are and at the moment. And now I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel as far as the AFCON departure. Should have those guys back soon, and Jared Branthwaite back in training. So second half of the season, stage is being set for what could be a very interesting run for this Everton team. Depending on what happens in the next couple weeks in the window, as Shan said, we'll keep you appraised of all of that. I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you all for joining us on the Blue Frontier. We appreciate you. If you enjoyed the show, leave us a rating and review on your platform of choice. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube. We'll be with you next time. Until then, up the Toffees.